Hello and welcome students to the JSS project videos, and in this video series we are covering the JSS project, and in this specific video we are going to promote the server to the domain controller. And before that, once we start the lab, let me show you how to access the practice lab and which lab is going to be the perfect for applying the JSS task and projects. So let's move to the Practice Labs platform. So when you log into the Practice Labs platform with the provided credentials from the JSS, you will scroll down and you will find this sandbox lab. And what it is, it contains the Windows Server operating system based virtual machine and the client Windows 10 operating system based machines. And with the help of these machines, you can easily replicate the projects, the tasks, the number of tasks we already created for you in these projects here on these practice labs, and it will allow you to easily learn and also get familiarized with the practice lab environment. So definitely you will have this manual before starting the lab, and if you scroll down you will find all the steps that we are going to discuss throughout the video in the manual. And here into the introduction, you can see that the thing we were discussing is already mentioned here, and you need to select this lab according to the instructions and the screenshots we have. And here you can see this picture that contains the details of all the virtual machines we have in the practice lab environment, and the two of the machines are selected, which one, the PLab SA01 and the PLab 101. Why? Because this is the standalone server. It is not the domain member. It is just a machine that has the network and a part of the practice labs machines, but not the domain member. And similarly, this machine too, it is a standalone client machine, and we need those two machines to create our own Active Directory, because in the practice lab environment you always have the practice lab Active Directory, and some of the machines where you find the domain member are the member of that practice labs Active Directory. But in contrast, we have these two machines that are not the member. That's why it is written standalone. So whenever you see this word standalone client machine or standalone server, that means what? That this machine is on the network but not the part of any domain, not the part of any Active Directory. So we're going to use both of these machines here. And if you scroll down, you have all the instructions here. So here, once you access this lab, so let me show you on the practice lab environment. So once you click here and click to the introduction and click to start, so it will prepare all the machine for you. And by default, you will find the PLab DC01 is started. It is power on, but we don't need this machine right now. But let's power it on and leave it as default. And which machines we need to turn on is the PLab SA01. So let's click to power on, and the PLab Win 101. So these two standalone machines will be used throughout this project. Now, as I mentioned in the manual, that if you want to make it full screen, so you can easily click to hide the content panel. So it's going to be look like that. And if you see this sort of error, so no worries, you can click to the machine and then scroll up and scroll to the right and click to reconnect. Now here you can see the administrator logon appears on the screen. Why? Because somehow we turn off the auto logon feature, and also this machine is not a part of any domain or any Active Directory. That's why you're easily accessing the local administrator account. So let me do what? Click to the content panel, click to the setting gear, scroll down and toggle on the server auto logon, and then hide the content panel, and let's reconnect the machine. So you'll find the machine will be log on automatically, and that's what we want to save the time to complete this project. So here you are good to go with the task, with the instructions. So this is the server but not the domain controller. It's a standalone server, and the only difference you have in these two machines, the PLab Win 10 and the PLab SA01, is what? Both are the machines, both have the operating system, but The PLAB SA01 have what? The Windows Server operating system, because you want to create it, the domain controller within your Active Directory. And the PLAB 101 is what? It is the client machine, and it has the client Windows operating system. So this is the difference, and because of these differences, these machines can work differently, because when you are making the domain controller, the controller, you mean you're giving all the rights, the power, and all the way to manage the clients. So definitely that specific operating system must have some different feature as compared to the client operating system, and which is the PLAB Win 101. So let's check both machines are power on. Now it's time to start with the PLAB SA01, because we are on the task promoting the server to the domain controller. So we need to start with the server machine, and which is here we have. So first, before starting the task, let's make sure that this machine is not the part of any other Active Directory or the domain. So for checking that, let's right click here and go to the settings, and here it will open this panel, and click to the accounts, go to the accounts, and once you click here, you will find the administrator, and it says local account administrator. So if you are working on any member machine, any member domain machine, so you will find the result in a different way, and let me show you. That's why I keep this PLAB DC01 turned on, because I want to show you what's the difference. So if you scroll down, and remember, this is the member server of the domain. So if you right click here and go to the settings and access the same option as we did with the PLAB SA01, so here you find what? That here it is mentioned the practice labs administrator. So it says that you are the part of any domain, any Active Directory that is mentioned here. And unlike here in the PLAB SA01, it is different. So that's the confirmation, and it is what you're make sure that you are working on the right server, on the right machine. And after confirming that status, let's proceed in this project. And the most important feature that separates the Windows Server operating system with the Windows Client operating system is what? The Server Manager, that helps to manage the client, that helps to add features that manage the clients. So how to access the Server Manager? You can click to the start and click to the Server Manager, and it will open like that, and you will see these sort of options. And later on in this project, in these videos, you will explore some of the related features to these different projects. So here, this is the Server Manager, and that's how you can access. So here, let's start the project. So the first and important thing is what? Just make sure that you know the name of the machine, because what happens when you install the Windows Server operating system into your hardware, it generates the machine name automatically, and this is mostly the long name that must be hard to remember. So let's first check the machine name and how we can check it. Click to the File Explorer, expand this PC from here, and right click to the PC, go to the properties, and here you can see the machine name. So it's okay, because here it is a practice lab environment, so everything is kind of decorated for you. But in the real life, in the real time, you will find that the Windows Server operating system generates a very long, hard name to remember to type. So we mostly change this name because we need to use this name throughout this whole process of promoting server to domain controller. So we make some simple and precise name. We set those sort of names to our servers. So it's okay, we have PLAB SA01, and that works for us. So I'm not going to change this, and you can find this tab here in our document that we already provided you. Now, another step that we should take is to disable the firewall. So for that, to achieve that, just click to the search and type firewall, and it will show you the Windows Defender Firewall, the best match on top. And here on the left, you have the turn Windows Defender Firewall on off. So let's go there and select these two options, turn off the Windows Defender Firewall, and click OK. So it will turn off the firewall, and any intervention from the firewall, like the packet filtering or stopping any sort of protocol, will not be done, will not be happen because you turn off the firewall. So once you've done that, click close. And another important step before starting to promote the server to the domain controller, you need to know the IP details. So if you open the CMD and type ipconfig space /all, this is the keyword /all. Once you type it, it will show you comprehensive details of the IP configuration. But in contrast, if you go with the IP config, it will provide you precise details of the IP configuration. So here's the adapter, and you have 0.3. This is the IP of your machine. And if you follow document, you will find that we specified that which is the network part and which one is the host part. So here 192.168.0 is the network part, and .3 is the host part, and this is your default gateway. And here you can see that there's a caution in your manual in the doc that it is the dynamic IP or the static. So this is the static IP. Why? Because the DHCP, the dynamic host configuration protocol, the DHCP enables DHCP provide the dynamic IPs. So if you find the DHCP enable is no, that means that there is no dynamic IP, it is a static. Why? Because you can see in the screenshot that the IP is configured manually by using the option use this. And let me show you here in the manual. And here you can see that if you explore the IP configuration option, then you will find that here the selected option is what use the following IP address, and which is this. So this means the IP is provided manually by static means, so that's why it is called the static IP. And the DHCP enable is set to no. Why? Because there's no check on here obtain an IP address automatically. If you find the check here, so definitely you will find the DHCP enable is yes. Why? Because if you find the check here on obtain an IP address automatically. So here in our case, it is the static IP already. And this is a tip, and you need to make note of it, that whenever you are promoting any server machine to the domain controller, you must have the static IP. Because reason why? If you go with the DHCP with the dynamic IP, so in the case of any restart or the lease expire, the IP will be changed. So it is recommended to have the static IP, and in most of the cases, most of the time, the domain controller have the DHCP server features in it. So this is the first machine we are creating in our environment, so it's not supposed to happen that you are going to provide the dynamic IP to your servers. So this is a tip and a kind of recommendation. You need to notice that, you need to note it down somewhere in your IT book. Now here on the practice labs environment, once you find out the IP detail, then it's time to start with the project, and ultimately let's add the role of the domain controller of the Active Directory on this server, and to make this server the domain controller of our Active Directory. So let's click to add roles and features, because this let us to add different roles and new features in our server. So this role based or the feature based installation is selected by default, so go with it. And the server selection, so if you have multiple server in the environment, it will show you here, but we have this server right now which we are going to promote as a domain controller. So let's select it and click next. Now here, this is the Active Directory domain services where we want to add in this server, and we want to promote our server as a domain controller. So select this one and add the feature, then click next. And it will automatically select all the required features here. Then here it will intimate you that this is the Active Directory details and you're going to install it. So then click next. And here if you select this, restart the destination server, so it will automatically restart the server once this process is done. So we are not going to select this one. So here on the confirmation solution selection, we're going to click to install. And here you can see it started the process, and installation is started on Vir PLAB SA01, your new server which you are going to promote as your domain controller. So let's wait for the process, and once it's done, then we will further finish up this whole thing. Once the installation succeeded, you will find the configuration required thing here on the right top, and under the notification you will find this yellow icon that tells you that you need to promote this server as a domain and the configuration is required for that. So here on the deployment configuration, we're going to select add a new forest because it's totally new directory. So we're going to add a new forest here, and we're going to name it as jss.jobskillshare.org. So this is going to be the root domain name we're going to have, and then click next, and here it is proceeding with the provided root domain name of your Active Directory. Now here you can see it is the Windows Server 2016, and you will find these things, these processes identical in the Windows Server 2019 also. So here let's set the password, and we already provided the password in the manual, so we are going to keep the same password. So in case if you forget anything, you must know that we are following the standard passwords and the username. So click next, and here we are already using the DNS, so we're going to skip this part and click next. Now here the net BIOS domain name, and here it is the additional option. So let's wait for the process. Once it's done, then we're going to add, and this is what the first part of your root domain name, which is what the JSS, and that's what we want to set it like. So click next, and here once this part done, then it will show you the database folder path, the logs file folder path, and the sys volume folder path. And these are both the ADDS, the Active Directory Domain Services specific routes path where all the database logs stored. So click next, and here's a review. You can review all your settings and all the details. This is the new domain name, this is the net BIOS, and the forest function level is the Windows Server 2016, and all the options and all the things that you configure are listed here, so you can take a look. And if you want to change anything, you can simply click to that specific option, and or you can click to this previous button, but we are not going to change these things. So click next, and here it is a prerequisite check. So once it is done, then we're going to install and promote the server finally as the domain controller. So here there's a green signal for you that all prerequisite checks pass successfully. So let's click to install and wait for the installation of Active Directory. So let's wait for the whole process. Once it's done, then we will verify our Active Directory and its status. And when the process is completed, it will show you that the machine is going to restart, and once it is power on, boot up again, so you will be accessing the Active Directory that you created. And when you click to reconnect after 1 or 2 minutes, so you will find the please wait for group policy client, because it is the practice lab environment and it is preparing for another Active Directory within this environment. So let's wait for this process. Once it's done, then we will log into our domain to this newly created Active Directory. So let's wait for this process. Now once the process complete, you will find this sort of notification because you created another Active Directory, and it is automatically trying to log in with the practice lab domain. So we need to sign in to the new domain, and that is our newly created directory. So let's remove this one and type JSS and then / administrator and the password here. Now here it is login, and you get the access to your Active Directory, and this is how we can promote our server to the domain controller. And let me show you one more thing. If you sign out again and try to log in again to your domain controller, so here The password you're going to use is the local administrator, but after joined by the Active Directory, after creating the Active Directory, you need to just type the JSS administrator. So here you are login. If you remove that and type JSS /administrator, let me type it in a capital letter, type administrator, and here you're going to type the password of the Practice Labs platform, the password of the administrator account. So here it can log in you to the domain administrator account of this machine. So you are logging on both the local administrator account and the domain administrator account here on this machine, and this is your new domain controller. So if you click to the settings and want to check that this machine is joined within the new domain, so there you go. And if you want to check your domain controller, so click to the start and launch the server manager. And just for the verifying stuff, so let's cross it and click to the tools, go to the Active Directory users and computer, and when you log in here you will find your newly created Active Directory. And here if you click the domain controller, so you will find the PLAB SA01, and this is the domain controller of your newly created Active Directory. So that's the verification, and that's all for this video.